Hello, and welcome to the section Working with Objects Using Classes and Interfaces. In the first video of the section, we're going to talk about creating classes. So, in traditional JavaScript, we will find function and prototype-based inheritance structures to build reusable components. For the developers coming from object-oriented world, it might look a bit awkward. Starting with ECMAScript 2015, also known as ECMAScript 6, JavaScript programmers will be able to write their code using the object-oriented approach, which is based on traditional classes. TypeScript allows you to use classes straight away right now and compile them to JavaScript code that works across all major browsers and platforms, such as Node.js, without having to wait for a next version of JavaScript. So let's take a look at the simple class-based TypeScript code. Okay, so first let's create a new file and write some code into it. As you might see, first we're declaring a class greeter. After that, we declare one field of that class and one method, as well as constructor. The same way as in many other object-oriented languages, we can hide constructor if we are not willing to write any custom logic there. We will look at it in the next sections of our course. After we're declaring a constructor, we're instantiating our class using a new keyword. The syntax should look familiar to you if you have used C# or Java before. You will notice that in the class, when we refer to one of the members of the class, we prepend this keyword. This denotes that it's a member access. Also, in the last line, when we create an instance of the greeter class using new, this calls into the constructor we defined earlier, creating a new object with the greeter shape and running the constructor to initialize it. In TypeScript, we are able to use most of the common object-oriented patterns. One of the most fundamental patterns in the class-based programming is the ability to extend existing classes to create new one using inheritance. TypeScript allows us to do that by using an extend keyword. So let's take a look. So let's come back to our previous example, delete the code we have written before and write a new code to demonstrate the logic that we want to see. Here we can see the most basic inheritance feature. Dog class will inherit properties and methods of animal class, which is considered to be its parent class. Here, dog is a derived class that's derived from the animal base class using the extends keyword. Derived classes are often called subclasses, and base classes are often called superclasses. Because dog extends the functionality from animal, we are able to create an instance of dog that can invoke both functions bark and move. Let's now modify our code so we can see more complex features of inheritance. Now we can observe some other features in our code. We still use the extend keyword to create two new subclasses of animal, horse and snake. One of the differences from the previous code is that each derived class contains a constructor, which must call a super function. Super function is a function which will invoke the constructor of a base class. It is important to mention that before we can use .this keyword in a derived class, constructor body, which will correspond to a class itself as we have seen before, we need to make a call to super function. Otherwise, we will have a compiler error. We also see how to override methods here from base class with more specialized methods in subclasses. Here both snake and horse classes are creating a move method which overrides the move method from animal class and gives it a functionality specific to that class. Also note another thing here. Even Tom variable is declared as an animal here. Since the value we are assigning to it is a horse, when we invoke a tom.move, it will call the method overridden in horse class. Let's execute it now and see the result. In order to execute it, let's create a new .html page and import our code there. Let's jump into console and do that. Also, we need to compile our test.ts file so it generates the corresponding JavaScript code. As we can see, the corresponding JavaScript file was generated here. Now let's go into the browser and invoke our test.html page. As you can see, our file was executed successfully and the results are as we have expected it from the code.